Now, the final section is about planets. And I'd like to ask, how many planets does the Dr. G system include? I'm assuming, of course, because of the races, we have Earth, Venus, Mars, the Moon, and presumably the rest of the solar system floating around. But is that all?
Those four are kind of the core four of this setting, meaning they have factions and locations and secrets and plots and all kinds of things happening on them that we've delved into. There's obviously a much bigger universe out there. There are characters from other planets and even from the unknown or from the Astro Belt or the Kuiper Belt. There are several mentions, as in the source material, of places beyond those core four planets. I mean, obviously the moon isn't a planet, but let's not get pedantic. In terms of what is fleshed out in this setting, it's those core four. But there are plenty of mentions for places beyond that, and there are mechanics for space travel. And if you want to get a hold of a rocket or hijack one and go rocketing off outside of those core four, there's plenty of adventure to be found there too. We just haven't fleshed all of those out to the degree that we have those core four.
Now, you talked about some factions on each of these worlds. Is the conflict between these factions, is that the main source of adventure? Or is there random safaris you can go on, like I am often wont to? Or are there strange occurrences that you might investigate on behalf of Dr. G?
I think it's all of that. It's really up to the GM, the Grordbortian mastermind. I mean, it's not game master, it's Grordbortian mastermind in this setting, of course. I mean, it really is kind of a sandbox. All of the factional strife and all of the power brokers or dramatis personae, they're termed, and like for each faction we list what they're after and who their allies and enemies are. So we have this kind of complex web of the movers and shakers and the power balance or imbalance in the setting. That can certainly drive a campaign or a single adventure, but it can also be just a backdrop for other stuff. I think all three of us, the writers, and Greg, I think, prefer more of a sandbox treatment, where it's here hopefully is an interesting set of circumstances and interesting characters in play. Do with it what you will. I think for plenty of players, they might choose to not get involved in British colonialization of Venus or Mars, or the Triumvirmilius sect on Mars that is trying to revitalize bring Martian culture back, because it's kind of a fallen civilization. All of that is there and can be the basis for a campaign, but you can also just go on safaris and shoot monsters if you want.
Now, is there a major cost to travel between these planets if you don't have a rocket of your own?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are commercial flights. The global warmer class of rockets in particular make fairly regular flights between planets. So, buy a ticket and hop on. Certainly, if you want, if you don't want to deal with the cost of that or the chance of pirate attacks, which is fairly significant, then you're well advised to get a hold of your own rocket, or maybe bum a ride with somebody like yourself. You favor the endangerer class, I believe, and that rocket can accommodate, I think, up to 8. So if you met a party of likely lads and lasses, then maybe you could be convinced to take them along with you to wherever you're headed.
I think if there's enough violence in store, I can be convinced to go anywhere.
And scotch.
Oh yes, can't go without. And is travel just another adventure, or is it sort of hand wave sometimes as you go between the planets?
So we have this mechanic, which is simple when it comes to travel and interplanetary travel, but it also applies actually to air-to-air and space-to-space combat. So each rocket or each class of rocket has what's called a thruster die, and the faster the rocket, the smaller the die. So I think your endangerer class has like a D6, pretty fast rocket. The silver shark, I think, has a D4, super fast. Global warmer has like a D12, slow as all heck. So if you want to travel from one planet to another, there's a chart for if you want to go from Earth to Venus, say, it's 2 die rolls. And so if you're in your endangered class, you would roll your d6 twice. That's how many weeks it takes you to get there. And the variability there has to do with orbits. It doesn't always take the same amount of time to get from Earth to Venus because planets are orbiting. But the smaller die you're rolling, the more likelihood that you're going to get a really fast trip. Most people opt for very fast rockets as opposed to heavily armed ones because space combat is extraordinarily deadly in this setting. And usually you're better off just trying to get there without issue than trying to fight off a pirate or an intergalactic raider or something like that. But it can be done. But that same thruster die is the basis for space-to-space combat too. It's a pretty simple system. I mean, there are 3 ranges. There's out of range, long range, and short range. And out of range means gone. You've escaped, or they're not on your radar. You can't see them. Long range means that they are if there are 2 ships and they're at long range, they're within range of their long range weaponry. Not all rockets have long range weaponry, but it means that that's where they are. So if that happens, if you're cruising along on your way to the Kuiper Belt and suddenly think somebody pops up on your long range radar and you think they're hostile, then you basically enter into combat and you roll your thruster die. And whoever has the lower roll can move 1 level away or move 1 level closer. So if you're at long range and you have the lower roll, you can move to out of range and you're gone. You've lost them. If you have the lower roll and you want to move closer, get within short range so that you can use your short range weaponry, you can do that. So lower roll kind of controls that. But if you have a good engineer on board, or if you have a good boffin, they can do all kinds of stuff to your rocket. A good engineer can lower the die that you roll or let you roll with advantage. A good boffin, if the rocket is equipped with the right gadgetronics, can cloak the rocket, can fire up your shields. And obviously if the rocket is equipped with weapons, then having the right class of player characters on board will help you be effective in combat. But these weapons tend to do a whole lot of damage. All vehicles have suffer malfunctions for every block of hit point damage they take. So space combat, even more so than air-to-air combat, which functions basically the same way, is really, really dangerous. So one would be advised to have your shields and have some good long-range weaponry, or else have a really fast rocket and just attempt to get out of there if you can.
That'd be a lesson to all the viewers. The finest equipment available at Dr. G's is going to give you the advantage between living or dying in the void of space.
Always.
Well, I believe that wraps up all the questions I have for you. Do you have any further comments for all the eager boys and girls?
Well, I guess one of the things that comes up often when we talk about this setting has to do with the satirical nature of things and whether people actually find things like colonialism and speciesism and sexism and exotic trophy hunting and all of those things funny, and whether it's appropriate to play in a world in which those things exist. Now you, Lord Cockswain, are a renowned purveyor of all of that stuff.
Family history, you might say.
Yeah, and so you might have a different take on this stuff than we do, but our hope is that people approach this setting knowing that it is satirical in nature, and we try to make that very clear up front, that including something like colonialism, which is kind of the big thing that is skewered in a setting, is not the same as advocating for it. It's being lampooned very clearly in the source material and in this setting. When it comes to tricky subjects like colonialism or imperialism, one way to deal with that in a role-playing game is just to excise it completely, and that thing doesn't exist, which is kind of the most popular way of doing it these days. and that's fine for a lot of groups. But I think another equally valid way of dealing with it is to have it in the game and exaggerate it to the point of farce and skewer it, to lampoon it. That's satire, and it's been going on for hundreds of years, all the way back to Gulliver's Travels, and I'm sure before that. But we do want to make it clear that and we do in the beginning of the book and in the beginning of all of the quick starts, to let people know that there are difficult subjects tackled or present in this setting, and in all cases we've tried very hard to make sure that they are presented in such a way that it's clear that it's being lampooned and satirized and not celebrated. We are hoping that people wouldn't dive into this setting in the hope of living out their imperialistic fantasies. But that's also, that's role-playing games. So I guess people can do whatever it is they like. But we hope that even if those things exist in the role-playing game, we certainly don't want them to exist around the table. And there's a difference between role-playing something and then just having somebody be imperialistic or sexist or whatever jerk at the table. So anyway, that's a note for the boys and girls out there when if they decide to pick this up and give it a go.
I think it's very important for everyone to be able to draw the line between reality and fantasy.
All right, how do you do that, Coxie?
Oh, I just get drunk.
Yeah. Right, blur the line, as it were.
If you're not even in your right mind, you can't even be in mind.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again, and I'll send you back to the Dr. G Labs to happily tinker away at this experience for the boys and girls. Once again, this is Lord Cockswain signing off.